I wanted to take a piece of wood with no straight lines or grain and come up with a design that fights nature for the space. So I started with this, a gnarly slab from the outside of the tree, the part that usually ends up as firewood. So the shape of the wood is telling me what to design and work within the constraints of its natural growth, which is kind of cheating. If the design comes from the wood, are they actually fighting each other? Or did I just trick myself into thinking they would? This is one of the main pieces for my upcoming art show, and I think it's one of the coolest pieces I've ever made, and this video is brought to us by Squarespace. I don't know where I got this. I think it's from a local sawmill, but this piece is completely gnarly. So today I want to blend nature with computer design. So it's almost like they're fighting each other, but in harmony. I don't even know what that means, but the first thing I need to do is flatten this. This is too wide for my planer, so we're gonna use my slab flattening jig. I've got a video on making that. Of course I do. This is way too messy to do in the shop, so we're gonna take this outside. Actually, we're gonna take this into Kelly's garage. Sorry, Kelly. So my slab is too big for my jig, so I can only go so far, so we're gonna slide it down and get the rest. Oh my goodness, that was way more work than what I was anticipating. But it's flat and it's much lighter, which is gonna work for hanging on the wall. Oh my goodness. Oh my goodness. We got this guy all flattened, and I had a plan going in, but my plans have now changed now that I can see the spalting and the knots and the wood grain. The original plan was to just offset the outside edge all the way around, remove the center, and then do some cool stuff with that. But I really, really like these knots in here, and I want them to be part of the piece. I want the naturalness of the wood to fight the computerness that we're going to add to this. We're gonna use computer to make graphics on there, and this is like a nature versus computer type thing. I am still going to offset the edge on most parts. That's not even working. Let's just do this by hand, the hard way. So we'll offset that. But we're gonna come in here and this knot is going to be suspended. So there's gonna be two pieces removed. And there's some spalting here. That is staying in here. I don't have to be precise. I'm just keeping it natural. Ugh. Okay, I think I have the wrong blade. I think there's too many teeth per inch, but we got that. Woo! One down. This looks cool, dude. Imagine all the stuff that we talked about going inside there. I mean, that's fixable. That's totally fixable. That curse word was completely unnecessary. There's gonna be this design that goes in the middle of this, and then these two guys, they're going to be the anti-piece, the anti-art, where that same design goes on the outside of this. I am going to just use some CA glue to patch this up right now so I can sand that inside contour. And I think cracks are still gonna show, so later on, I'm probably gonna use some epoxy in there to strengthen that up. But I wanna use some CA glue right now just so I can move on to the next step. And this just has to hold up for sanding this. I talk like CA glue is not strong. It's really strong. It's just that wood glue and epoxy is stronger. Here's the thing. Woodworkers love overkill. Now we're gonna use what is my least favorite tool in the shop, the router, to put a rabbet along the back. I don't have a plan for what's gonna be inserted in there yet, but we're just going with the flow, and I'm figuring this out on the fly. All right, so we took that outside. I didn't want to get wood chips on my carpet. So now we're gonna paint the live edges. I want this black. I want the live edges there, but I don't want them to be seen. I'm working on a bunch of art, and I needed canned air to clean up some of the art pieces before they go into the gallery. And so I went to Amazon to get some canned air, and I came across of course there are electric air blowers, but this guy, it's insanely powerful. 3 speeds. This is not sponsored, by the way. Listen to that. You need this. You need this. I haven't even charged it yet. We're still using the factory charge. Okay, back to our regularly scheduled program. We're gonna let that dry. We're gonna come back tomorrow to work on the cool stuff. And I know what you're thinking. You already did cool stuff. Wait until tomorrow. I mean, today for you, tomorrow for me. Unless something bad happens. So it's the next day. You can tell because I've got a different shirt. Very similar, but different. The paint here has dried. This is looking really good. I think I've finalized the design that's gonna go in here, but the first thing I need to do is just sand off the paint that got up on the top. So we're gonna take care of that now, and then we are gonna do some cool stuff. So now that our shape has been finalized, I am gonna take a photo of this. So I bring that photo in Photoshop, and it's got the slab and the ruler in there. Typically, I will start off with a perspective crop around something that I know is square, and then from here, I can then expand the crop. So then I'm going to go in and then make a mask around just the slab. So then I can take the selection from those things. I can go into the Path tab and make a work path, and we're gonna import that into Illustrator. Now to get this to the correct size, I know that this ruler is 48 inches by 2 inches. So I am going to draw a rectangle 48 inches by 2 inches. As you can see, our image is too big. It's bigger than the 48 by 2 inch rectangle that we made. So I'm going to scale it down. These are the 2 shapes that I need to do all the cool stuff that we're about to do. I am just going to start drawing shapes. Just kind of totally random. Julia Child's style, I'm going to fast forward to all the work that's already been done. After a lot of work, this is what I ended up with. I played with the shapes and I redid things, and I wanted some bigger pieces on the outside and some smaller pieces on the inside. I rounded all the corners, and this is what it's going to look like with the slab. Before cutting the 62 pieces out of metal, I did some test runs with the laser. And good thing I did, because even though I tried to remove all that perspective and the warpage of the photo, the original pieces would not fit into the rabbet that we cut. So there was a lot of like warping and manipulation and a whole bunch of tests. This took quite a few hours to get it right. It kind of gives me an idea of what this is going to look like when it's done. This is going to be really freaking cool. So all 62 of these pieces are, even though it's set back into the slab, the pieces are actually going to be forward, above the slab. So they're all gonna have little standoffs. There's a lot of work ahead, and they're all gonna be textured and shaped. And thank goodness we got some fancy machines to do a lot of that work for us, but there is still a lot of manual labor ahead of me. Let's head out into the metal shop and start cutting these out. So we're gonna start off with this 1mm thick steel. There's a lot of pieces, so I spray painted the back real quick so I know what the back is gonna look like, because this could get very confusing in the future. So I'm gonna insert that into the metal fab here. In the software for this big fancy metal fab machine, it takes a photo of the sheet metal that I put in there. I brought in the artwork and I'm going to position that where I want to cut that out. I can go in and I can select the material that I have. It automatically does all the settings for me. So I hit OK, and then we can hit process and start. This works so fast. Every time I use it, it's like magic. Every single time. Oh, yes. Oh, I should grab some gloves. They fall through to the bottom. Imagine if I didn't paint the bottom and there were 62 pieces to go through. I don't like puzzles. You see the hole in there? I'll explain that later. Genius. That's a genius hole right there, buddy. Anybody remember that? Only 32 more to go. But while I'm doing that, I'd like to tell you about today's sponsor, and that is Squarespace. I have been using Squarespace for over a decade, if you can believe that. I used to be a web developer. You might be wondering, why would a former web developer be using Squarespace? That's because I want to focus on the creative stuff, like what we're doing today. I don't want to be making websites and figuring out how to update my websites and deal with cloud storage code, backend, server stuff, payment processors. I don't have to worry about that. Squarespace handles all of that for me behind the scenes, in the background. With Squarespace, you can just choose one of their award-winning templates. Yes. Award-winning templates. I wouldn't worry about picking the right template because you can go in and you can change that template at any time. 2 clicks, you got a new template. And if you're worried about those templates looking like somebody else's website, you can completely go in, rearrange things, move things around, change fonts, change colors, make it your own. It really is that easy. You don't need to know all the pages that you're gonna have. You don't need to have all your photos and text ready. You can just go in, you're gonna answer a few questions. It's gonna ask you if you want contact pages, if you're selling stuff, if you need a portfolio page. It's gonna ask you a bunch of questions, and while you're answering those questions, it's gonna build your site for you in the background. So visit squarespace.com, and when you're ready to launch, visit squarespace.com/makesomething to save 10% off your first purchase of a website or domain. Thank you, Squarespace, for sponsoring this video. Man, these look so freaking cool. What do you think, Jefferson? He says they're hot. He burned himself earlier, so by hot, he means temperature, not Paris Hilton.
That's hot. That's hot. That's hot. That's hot. That's hot. That's really hot.
I do not understand propane or propane accessories, but look at the frost on that guy. The bottom piece, we did a different thing here. So we cut out the bottom shape, and then I probably should have cleaned the rust off, but hey, Kelly. But I just engraved where all the little standoffs are going to be welded on there. So they don't go all the way through. This is coming out fantastic. We're gonna weld all of these to the backing plates. I already got started, and if I feel like it later, I might do oh my goodness, this was insanely hard. I learned a lot of valuable lessons because I did this wrong, and they kept breaking over and over and over and over again. And I lost an entire weekend fixing all my mistakes when I could have rebuilt the whole thing in a half a day. But anyway, if I would have made my standoffs longer, this whole process would have been much easier. Bad design. As Jimmy DeResta says, you go to school on the first one. So here is what we do. We need to work in from the inside and go to the outside. That way we can get our welding gun in there and weld. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to take my piece, and we got the little hole in there, right? That is part of the design. We are going to take our standoffs that we cut, and we're going to tack it right on there like that. If I could go back in time, I would make these pieces much thicker. They're 1 millimeter. And the reason I chose thin metal for this is because I thought, oh, it would be easier to hammer to get all those, that dimple pattern on there. Turns out, really thin metal, you can burn through it real quick. I learned a lot of lessons on the first one. And don't forget, hot metal looks like cold metal. I'm just gonna hold it in place right there on that circle. But I'm also more concerned about visually how it looks. And then, glasses on, yep, getting ready to fire. And I'm gonna tack it in place until it holds. And there it goes. And so then I can get it to where I want. Once I like that position, I can then go in from behind and attack. And from the side. And then again from the front. Your mom knows about this technique. All right, as we were discussing a second ago, the next time I will make the standoffs like a ½ inch taller. That would make this process so much easier. Because I have the holes on top for alignment, I'm going to weld on top too. Just put a little bead on there. Now, I will say, the laser welder makes welding so much easier. Everything about laser welding is just far easier than regular welding. But the one thing I haven't figured out how to do with the laser welder is build up metal into a pool, because the laser's so small and precise. So I'm going to switch over to my MIG welder to do those little tacks. So I still use my traditional welder every once in a while. And so now it is grinding and polishing. This is the long, hard work. This takes a long time. So I am back in the wood shop where I belong. I don't belong out there. I don't belong in Kelly's garage. But the next thing I want to do is this guy right here. This is looking, it's like so freaking cool. I'm going to set this aside. I am going to pour epoxy inside here because I want this black. I want it, basically, it's going to, we got the black here, and so I want the black here. We're also going to do some cool stuff to the wood in a little bit, but first things first, I think I need to create a little reservoir, so I am going to do that with some foil tape. And so now, we're just going to pour our black epoxy right in there. You got to make sure all the bad welds are covered and hidden so nobody ever sees the lack of skill. It's not about skill, it's about the idea. The idea of having skill. In my head, the orange dye and the black highlights are really gonna pop. Okay. The gnarly grain on this is looking so good. Oh man. I still got a little bit more buffing to do, but after a couple hours, I'm like, I need a break. So we poured the epoxy in there, and the contrast between the black and the metal is looking really, really good. So in the meantime, while that is curing, we're gonna head out back into the other garage, and we're gonna lacquer the wood. The lacquer already dries extremely fast. And with the HVLP gun atomizing it, it dries even faster. So it's almost instant dry. And I'm just kind of smoothing down for the last few coats. So I've got one small issue. I didn't follow my pattern as precisely as I wanted, and this side doesn't fit into the piece. It's a simple fix, but I thought I was all done with the stupid metal stuff, but I got to just cut off a couple of the edges and we'll be good. Back to the metal shop. But man, this looks freaking awesome. Okay. That should work. It's so crazy how the final details are the ones that, there you go, it just holds you back. And you think you're down the home stretch, but you have so much work left. Oh my goodness. I wish you could see this because, damn. I've run into one more issue, and it's not a big issue, but the plan was to just drill holes into the metal and into the wood and screw it in. I don't want holes along here in case this wants to expand, and I don't want that trapped in there where it can't expand and then it cracks and breaks. So the plan was just to attach it on the ends because the wood doesn't expand this way. I am over-explaining things, I get it. But I don't have enough of a lip on the rabbet because my metal's smaller than the opening. And the wood is not very, it's got cracks and chucks at the ends. So I'm gonna do this instead. On the back side, I did go ahead and paint the metal because I like all sides to look good. The tabs are just holding it in place. It does allow expansion and contraction. There's room for that. I added some rubber standoff so it doesn't sit up against the wall, and the picture frame wire. The back side looks freaking cool, but wait until you see the front side. This came out so freaking good. And now, oh my goodness, this looks so freaking good. Look at that. Between the orange, the black, and the silver, I am super, super thrilled with how this came out. It looks fantastic in person. So let's go hang this on the wall and show you some of the detail here. I did start working on the anti-art, which is the cutoffs from the center and all the pieces that's going to go around. I was hoping to have that finished by the end of this video, but I decided I don't want to show off every single piece on video, and some things should be a surprise for the art show. So the anti-art will be done and ready by the art show. Just thought I'd give you a little tease right now. I know I just said this, but I am super thrilled with how this came out. I love the orange. There's just something beautiful about the orange and all the gnarly grain going in all the crazy directions. I will have a playlist of all of the art pieces that I'm going to put into the art show. I'm gonna have lots of details on the art show down in the description. You're all invited. It is 2 Saturdays, Saturday, June 20th and Saturday, June 27th. I hope to see some of you there. That is gonna wrap it up. As always, be safe, have fun, stay passionate, and make something. This started off as nature versus computer, and it turned out to be not a versus, but they teamed up together, I think. That's artists speak for, I don't know what this means.